The suburban street looked ordinary, almost too ordinary. Neatly trimmed lawns, mailboxes lined up in a row, children riding bicycles, and neighbors waving as they watered their gardens. From the outside, the Jordan family fit in seamlessly. A loving father, a devoted mother, and two young children who seemed to bring life to the household. But what no one could see from the sidewalk was the storm quietly building behind closed doors. Michael Jordan was a respected man in his community. A father of two, he spent most of his time working hard to provide for his family. He believed he had married his soulmate, Larissa, a woman who appeared to be everything a partner should be, caring, nurturing, and endlessly supportive. To anyone who met her, she seemed like the perfect wife. Friends often told Michael how lucky he was, and for years he believed them. But like many stories that begin with perfection, cracks soon began to form. At first, they were small, almost unnoticeable. Larissa would spend long hours locked away in her bedroom, claiming she was tired or unwell. She had excuses, always believable, always delivered with convincing emotion. Michael didn't push. He simply assumed his wife was under stress. After all, she had always taken on so much, running the household, caring for the children, and managing family events. Yet something about her behavior nagged at him. Larissa's excuses grew more frequent, her absences longer, and her mood more unpredictable. She had a way of dismissing his concerns with an easy smile or a gentle touch. "Don't worry, Michael," she would say softly. "I'm just tired. You work so hard. Let me handle things." Michael wanted to believe her. He needed to believe her. But doubts crept in during quiet nights when he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Was his wife hiding something? His questions intensified after a peculiar incident at a neighborhood barbecue. A friend casually mentioned seeing Larissa at a nearby pharmacy late at night. It didn't seem strange at first, until Michael realized that Larissa had told him she was at home resting that same evening. When he asked her about it later, she brushed it off, claiming she needed medicine for a headache. The explanation seemed harmless, yet her tone was sharp, almost defensive, leaving Michael unsettled. As weeks turned into months, Michael began noticing other details, bank statements that didn't add up, unexplained charges on their joint account, strange phone calls that she always rushed to answer in private. Each piece felt like part of a puzzle, one he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. But when Larissa's health suddenly seemed to decline, the puzzle took on a darker shape. She began claiming she was sick, terribly sick. She spoke of fatigue, pain, and dizzy spells. The once vibrant woman now portrayed herself as fragile, almost broken. Concerned and terrified, Michael supported her in every way he could. He accompanied her to appointments, paid for medications, and even cut back on work to help around the house. And yet, something didn't feel right. The doctor's words didn't always match Larissa's descriptions. Her test results often came back normal, contradicting her dramatic claims. Michael wanted to trust her, but doubt was becoming a shadow he could no longer ignore. What he didn't realize then was that his wife's illness wasn't what it seemed. The truth behind her secret would not only shatter his world, but would also reveal a darkness he never believed possible in the woman he thought he knew best. The perfect family image was beginning to unravel, and soon Michael would be forced to face the sick secret his wife had carefully hidden. Michael Jordan had always trusted his instincts, but in recent months they had begun to turn against him. He had married Larissa because she embodied trustworthiness, compassion, and honesty, or so he thought. But now, the woman he once believed to be his partner in everything was becoming a stranger. At first, Michael brushed off the doubts. He reminded himself of her years of loyalty, her warm laughter, her dedication as a mother. But it was the small things that kept gnawing at him. The late-night errands, the secretive phone calls, the way she flinched when he asked simple questions. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. Something was wrong. One evening, Michael came home earlier than expected from work. The children were asleep, the lights dimmed, and Larissa was sitting at the kitchen table, startled by his arrival. On the table lay several prescription bottles, more than Michael had ever seen before.
He froze. "Larissa," he said carefully, "what's going on?"
She looked up at him with wide, rehearsed eyes.
"I didn't want to worry you," she whispered. "The doctors say I'm sick. Really sick." Michael's chest tightened.
He stepped closer, scanning the labels. Some were painkillers, others anti-anxiety medications, but several were unrecognizable to him. He tried to breathe through the panic building inside him. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" he demanded. His voice was firm, but beneath it lay a tremor of fear. "I didn't want to burden you," she said softly, reaching for his hand.
"You already work so hard. I thought I could handle it." Her words disarmed him.
For a moment he felt ashamed of his suspicion. Maybe he had been overthinking. Maybe his wife truly was sick, and he had been too blind to see her suffering. That night, Michael vowed to support her through whatever came next, but support quickly turned into confusion. The medical appointments seemed strange. Sometimes Larissa would insist on going alone. Other times, she claimed doctors had changed her medications, yet no paperwork followed. When Michael pressed for details, she became defensive, accusing him of not trusting her. One night, while she slept, Michael sat alone in the living room with his laptop. He searched the names of the medications. Some were legitimate, but others were uncommon, prescribed only under very specific circumstances. His stomach dropped. Why would Larissa need drugs that didn't match her claimed symptoms? The following week, things grew darker. Larissa collapsed in front of the children. Michael rushed her to the emergency room, frantic and pale. He begged the doctors for answers. But after running multiple tests, the medical staff couldn't find anything wrong with her. "She's stable," a doctor told him, "but her results don't indicate the illnesses she described. Are you sure she's been diagnosed properly?" Michael's mind spun. He didn't want to accuse his wife of lying. Who would do such a thing? But the evidence was mounting. Each explanation, each excuse was starting to crumble under the weight of truth. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He replayed every moment of their marriage, wondering if he had missed the signs all along. Larissa had always been dramatic, prone to exaggeration, but this was different. This was calculated. His world was shifting beneath his feet. The woman he loved might not just be hiding something, she might be fabricating an entire illness. And if she was lying about being sick, Michael feared what else she might be capable of hiding. This was no longer about trust. This was about survival. The morning after Larissa's hospital scare, Michael found himself watching her with new eyes. She sat at the breakfast table, sipping coffee, her face pale but composed. To anyone else, she looked like a woman recovering from illness. But to Michael, the image felt staged, as though she was performing a role. He wanted to believe her. He desperately wanted to believe her. But something in his gut refused to quiet down. When the children left for school,
Michael finally confronted her.
"Larissa," he began, his voice steady but cautious, "the doctors said your tests didn't show anything serious." They seemed confused. Her expression tightened. For a moment, her eyes flickered with something sharp, annoyance, maybe even anger, before she quickly masked it with a weak smile. "Doctors don't know everything," she said flatly. Sometimes illnesses are hard to detect. Michael studied her. It was true, medical mysteries existed. But there was a hollowness in her voice, a lack of sincerity that unsettled him. Later that week, his unease deepened. He had started quietly organizing the finances, combing through their joint accounts. What he found left him cold. Thousands of dollars withdrawn over the past months. Purchases from pharmacies scattered across the city. Receipts for drugs he had never seen in the house. He couldn't shake the feeling that Larissa wasn't just sick, she was orchestrating something. One evening, after Larissa left abruptly, claiming she needed another urgent prescription, Michael followed her. He drove several cars behind, his palms slick with sweat. She didn't go to the nearest pharmacy as she had said. Instead, she drove nearly half an hour away to a small, dimly lit store tucked between shuttered shops. Michael parked across the street and watched as she disappeared inside. When she returned to the car, she was clutching a paper bag, her face tense. She looked around nervously before driving off. Michael's heart pounded. His wife was hiding something that went beyond illness. That night, while Larissa showered, he searched her purse. Inside the bag, he found pill bottles, labels peeled off. No names, no prescriptions, just anonymous containers filled with pills. He slipped them back before she returned, his mind racing. Why was she collecting unmarked drugs? He considered confronting her again, but fear stopped him. Not fear of her reaction, but fear of the truth. What if Larissa's sickness wasn't an illness at all, but a fabrication designed to manipulate him and everyone around them? Days later, the situation escalated. Larissa collapsed again, this time at a grocery store. Witnesses rushed to help and paramedics arrived. Michael, panicked and breathless, met them at the hospital. But once again, doctors were puzzled. Her vitals were stable, her blood work normal. One physician, pulling Michael aside, spoke bluntly, "Sir, has your wife ever been evaluated for psychological conditions? These episodes don't add up." Michael's blood ran cold. The possibility that Larissa wasn't physically sick at all but might be pretending left him shaken. Could she really be feigning illness for sympathy? For money? For control? That night, Michael sat alone in the darkened living room. His marriage, his family, his entire life felt like a stage play with Larissa at the center, pulling the strings. The cracks in her mask were widening, and soon the truth would burst through. But Michael wasn't sure if he was ready for the answer. Michael was no longer the same man he had been just months earlier. Sleepless nights had hollowed his eyes, and every conversation with Larissa felt like a dangerous dance. She was distant, secretive and defensive, her warmth replaced by a strange, cold detachment. The children noticed it too. "Daddy," his youngest whispered one night, "why is Mommy always sad?" Michael forced a smile, reassuring his son, but inside he felt the weight of 1,000 questions. How much longer could he hide the truth from them when he barely understood it himself? One afternoon, Michael decided he couldn't wait any longer. He began digging deeper into Larissa's medical claims. Calling one of the clinics she had claimed to visit, he asked for records. The receptionist hesitated before explaining that there were no files under his wife's name. None. Michael's stomach turned. She had lied again. Later that week, an old friend of Larissa's unexpectedly reached out. She seemed hesitant but worried.
"Michael, I don't want to stir trouble, but—"
"I've seen this before with Larissa. Back in college, she pretended to be sick for weeks. She loved the attention, people fussing over her, professors giving her extensions. It wasn't real then."
"I'm worried it might not be real now." The revelation shook Michael to his core.
Could it be that his wife's illness was not only fabricated but part of a long pattern? Determined to get answers, Michael quietly searched the house when Larissa was out. In the back of their closet, tucked inside a shoebox, he found journals. His hands trembled as he opened them. The handwriting was hers. At first, the entries seemed normal, lists, daily frustrations, small memories. But deeper into the pages, the words grew darker, more obsessive.
One entry read, "They only love me when I'm sick.
When I'm fragile, they stay close. Otherwise, I'm invisible." Another read, "If Michael thinks I'm dying, he'll never leave.
He'll always stay." Michael felt the blood drain from his face.
This wasn't about medicine or health. It was about control, about manipulating love through fear and sympathy. His wife's sickness wasn't an illness at all. It was a weapon. That night, he sat across from Larissa at the dinner table, his heart racing. She smiled faintly, stirring her food, while Michael's eyes burned with silent knowledge. He wanted to scream, to accuse her outright, but the children sat nearby, watching, innocent. He swallowed his rage, playing along with her performance, for now. Later, when the kids were asleep, Larissa claimed she felt faint and clutched her chest. "Michael!" she whispered dramatically. "I think it's getting worse. Promise me you'll never leave me, no matter what happens." Michael stared at her, his jaw clenched, his voice low and steady.
"I'll always do what's best for this family." She didn't notice the shift in his words, but inside, Michael had made a decision.
The mask was slipping, and soon he would rip it away. Michael's discovery of Larissa's journals haunted him. The words weren't those of a sick woman. They were the ramblings of someone who craved control through manipulation. Every line screamed desperation, a need to bind her family to her by feigning weakness. But Michael knew accusations wouldn't be enough. If he confronted her without proof, she would twist the story, make him the villain, and play the victim even harder. He needed evidence, undeniable proof that would reveal her deception. So he began quietly documenting everything. He saved receipts, photographed pill bottles, and wrote down dates and times of her so-called collapses. He created a hidden folder on his computer where he logged every detail, every inconsistency, every performance. The more he collected, the clearer the picture became. Larissa wasn't sick at all. She was orchestrating a false narrative. But why? The answer came sooner than he expected. One evening, while Larissa showered, Michael scrolled through her phone. His hands trembled as he unlocked it, praying she wouldn't step out and catch him. He opened her messages and froze. There were long conversations with friends, even strangers online, where she described herself as terminally ill. She spun elaborate stories of battling rare diseases, of enduring endless hospital visits, of needing sympathy and financial help. She played the role of a tragic heroine, receiving constant reassurance from her audience. Some even sent money. Michael's stomach turned. His wife wasn't just manipulating him, she was conning others, feeding on their pity for validation and gain. When she returned from the shower, wrapped in a towel, he slipped the phone back, his heart pounding. She smiled sweetly, unaware of what he had just uncovered. The facade was crumbling, but Michael still couldn't confront her. Not yet. He needed a strategy, a way to expose the truth without putting himself or the children in danger. That night, as Larissa lay sleeping beside him, Michael stared at the ceiling, replaying the past years of their marriage. Had it all been a lie? The romantic gestures, the laughter, the promises, they now seemed like rehearsed performances in a carefully crafted play. But then another thought struck him. If Larissa was capable of lying so convincingly, of deceiving, not only her husband but an entire network of people, what else could she be hiding? Could her manipulations escalate into something more dangerous? The question chilled him to his core. In the days that followed, Larissa's illnesses grew more dramatic. She would clutch her chest in public, fall to the ground in stores, or wail loudly at home, demanding Michael's immediate attention. Each time, he noted the inconsistencies, the way her symptoms disappeared when no one was watching, the way her energy returned the moment sympathy was secured. Michael realized he was no longer living with a wife. He was living with a character she had created, a fragile ghost of sickness designed to keep him trapped. But Michael was done playing the supporting role in her story. The time for quiet observation was ending. Soon, he would pull the curtain back on Larissa's performance, and the truth would spill out for everyone to see. Michael Jordan had reached a crossroads. For weeks he had quietly collected evidence, piecing together the puzzle of Larissa's lies. The journals, the hidden receipts, the unmarked pill bottles, the deceptive text messages, all of it pointed to one conclusion. Larissa was not sick. She was manufacturing an illusion of illness to control, manipulate, and exploit. But knowing the truth and proving it were two different battles, and Michael knew he couldn't fight this war alone. He began confiding in a close friend, Daniel, someone he trusted deeply. Sitting in Daniel's garage one late evening, surrounded by the smell of oil and the hum of cicadas, Michael spilled everything. Daniel listened, his face tightening with concern.
Mike, this is serious.
If she's pretending, this isn't just about lying, it's about abuse. She's manipulating you, the kids, everyone. You need to protect yourself. Michael nodded, his jaw clenched.
I know, but if I confront her too soon, she'll spin it.
She's good at it, too good. I need something she can't deny. Daniel leaned forward. Then document everything. Record her. Get her lies on tape. She's going to keep playing sick. Let her performance expose her. That night, Michael set up a small recorder on his phone. He didn't like spying, but desperation outweighed morality. He needed undeniable proof. Over the next week, he captured hours of conversations. Larissa describing illnesses that didn't exist, claiming symptoms that doctors had already dismissed, crying theatrically when she thought she had an audience. But the most damning moment came one evening. Michael left the recorder running while stepping outside. When he returned, he found Larissa alone in the kitchen, rehearsing her lines. Her voice was clear, sharp, nothing like the weak, trembling tone she used in public. If I faint at the store, Michael will panic again. They'll all feel sorry for me.
He won't leave. He can't leave. Not if I'm dying. Michael's chest tightened as he replayed the words.
His wife wasn't just faking, she was strategizing her manipulations like a performance artist. The mask had slipped. Still, Michael knew he couldn't rush. If he acted recklessly, she might retaliate in ways he couldn't predict. He had the children to think about. Their safety came first, but Larissa, oblivious to his growing arsenal of evidence, continued her charade. She told friends she was terminally ill, convinced neighbors to deliver meals, even asked relatives for money to cover medical bills. Each lie cut deeper into Michael's patience. One night, after tucking the children into bed, Michael confronted her gently. "Larissa," he said, his voice calm, "are you sure you're telling me everything? The doctors don't seem to find what you're describing." Her eyes narrowed, defensive. "So now you don't believe me?"
After everything I've been through?
She stormed away, slamming the bedroom door. Michael sat in the silence that followed, his hands trembling. It was clear he was nearing the breaking point. The truth was no longer a shadow he could keep hidden. It had to come out, even if it destroyed the family image they had built. Soon, Larissa's carefully woven web of lies would collapse, and when it did, Michael would be ready. The walls of the Jordan household were closing in. Michael had gathered enough evidence to fill a file box, recordings, receipts, falsified prescriptions, and journals that revealed Larissa's obsession with feigned illness. But the hardest evidence of all was the recording of her rehearsing, her voice steady and calculating, proving that her sickness was nothing more than a cruel performance. Michael knew it was only a matter of time before the truth erupted. The question was not if, but when. His days grew heavier, his nights longer. The children sensed the tension, asking innocent questions that cut him to the core.
"Daddy, when will Mommy get better?"
His throat tightened each time, and all he could do was promise them that everything would be okay, even though he wasn't sure how. Meanwhile, Larissa's performance intensified. She staged fainting spells in front of neighbors, broke down in tears when friends came over, and claimed that her illness was progressing at an alarming rate. Michael watched silently, his face a mask, while inside he boiled with rage. The breaking point came one afternoon during a family gathering. Relatives crowded the living room, offering Larissa sympathy and comfort. She lay on the couch, draped in a blanket, speaking weakly about how much time she had left. Gasps and tears filled the room. People promised to help financially, to pray for her, to be by her side. Michael stood in the corner, his jaw clenched, his heart hammering. Every word out of her mouth was a lie. Every tear was manipulation. And now, Her lies weren't just consuming him, they were consuming everyone they loved. That evening, when the guests left, Michael confronted her. His voice was low, steady, but filled with steel. "Larissa, this has to stop." She glanced at him, feigning confusion. "What do you mean?"
I know, he said firmly. I know you're not sick. I've seen the journals.
"I've heard the recordings. You're lying to me, to the kids, to everyone." Her face changed instantly. The fragile, weak demeanor melted away, replaced by a flash of anger.
Her eyes narrowed, sharp and venomous. "How dare you?" she hissed.
"After everything I've been through for this family, you stand there and accuse me?" Michael stood his ground. "This isn't about accusation. This is about truth."
And you can't hide it anymore. For the first time, Larissa's mask cracked completely.
Her voice grew cold, her tone sharp. "If you think you can expose me, you'll regret it. Nobody will believe you. They'll believe me, the sick, suffering wife. And you?"
You'll look like a cruel, heartless man who abandoned his dying wife. Michael's hands trembled, but he refused to back down. Not this time, Larissa. Not anymore. The silence between them was suffocating.
Larissa turned away, her jaw tight, her body trembling with rage. For years, she had controlled the narrative. But now, her power was slipping, and she knew it. Michael walked out of the room, his chest tight, his mind racing. The confrontation had begun, but the war was not over. The truth was about to explode into the open, and when it did, there would be no turning back. The storm finally broke on a grey, rainy morning that seemed to foreshadow the chaos about to unfold. Michael woke with a plan in his heart and evidence in his hand. For too long, Larissa had twisted reality, but now her web of lies was unraveling. He had spoken quietly to a few trusted relatives in the days after their confrontation. With trembling hands, he had shown them the journals, the prescriptions that didn't match any legitimate doctor's notes, and most damning of all, the recordings of Larissa rehearsing her performances. At first, there was disbelief, even anger toward him. How could he accuse a woman so sick? But once they heard her words, steady and emotionless, a cold silence filled the room. The truth had struck like a hammer, so they gathered again. This time, not in blind support of Larissa, but with eyes wide open. The living room was full when Larissa stepped inside, her face pale, her gait slow, as though she were struggling even to stand. She wrapped herself in her blanket, ready to play the role she had perfected. But instead of sympathy, she was met with silence. Confusion flickered in her eyes. She looked around, waiting for someone to rush forward to hold her, to comfort her.
No one moved. Then Michael spoke.
His voice didn't tremble this time. "Larissa, it's over."
Everyone knows. She froze, her mask slipping. Knows what?
She whispered, still clinging to the act. Michael pressed play on his phone. The room filled with her own voice, cold, calculating, rehearsing lines about her illness, practicing when to cry, when to faint, when to beg for help. Gasps echoed from relatives. Some shook their heads in disbelief, others covered their mouths in horror. Larissa's blanket slipped from her shoulders. Her hands trembled, not from fake weakness, but from real fear. For years, she had controlled the narrative, but now the truth stood naked in the center of the room. Her mother was the first to speak. "Larissa."
How could you?
Her voice cracked with both anger and heartbreak. Tears finally welled in Larissa's eyes, not rehearsed, not calculated, but raw and panicked. "You don't understand," she stammered.
I needed it. I needed the attention, the love.
"Without it, I was nothing. Nobody saw me unless I was broken." Her confession silenced the room. The fragility, the desperation in her words revealed what had been festering inside all along, a hunger for validation, so deep it consumed everything around her. But sympathy had long been spent. Michael's voice cut through the quiet.
You lied to me.
"You lied to our children. You stole years of our lives to feed this.
obsession. And I can't let you do it anymore. Larissa crumbled into a chair, her hands covering her face.
For the first time, the mask was gone. She was no longer the fragile victim, nor the manipulative deceiver, just a broken woman exposed by her own lies. In the weeks that followed, the household shifted. Michael took control, focusing on the children, guiding them gently through the pain of betrayal. Family members who once pitied Larissa now kept their distance, their trust shattered. And Larissa, once the center of every room, found herself alone, her voice no longer commanding belief, but echoing in emptiness. The story of Larissa Jordan was whispered about in the neighborhood for years, how a woman faked her own death, how her lies tore apart the people who loved her most. Some pitied her, others despised her, but all agreed on one thing: her deception had left scars that would never fully heal. Michael, standing by the window one evening, watching his children play in the yard, whispered to himself, "The truth may hurt, but lies destroy." And with that, the curtain closed on Larissa's performance forever.